Hey, what is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Promethean Tides. I'm General. As always, I'm joined by Breaker. What is going on, Breaker?
Loab is inevitable.
So, let's see. We're recording this Saturday, 26th of November, 2022, and there has not been much in the news whatsoever, because it's Thanksgiving weekend. By the way, I hope everyone had a pleasant Thanksgiving. It fell on the 24th this week, and actually, every November 24th is also Evolution Day. So that was the day that Darwin published his Origin of Species manuscript. So that's Evolution Day. So big round of applause for Evolution Day. Let's go.
Yay. Speaking of evolution, we're probably going to touch upon some evolutionary principles relatively soon.
Yeah. So I guess we figured that since there's no news, we just kind of, I don't know, shoot the shit, just talk about some stuff and see where that goes. So absolutely no structure to this show. But yeah, uh, I guess we can just start out with it. Breaker, he told me about this Loab thing. I had no idea what the hell it was. But I will show it to all of you in all of its glory.
Dun dun dun.
This is Loab.
Oh yeah. Wonderful. It's pretty spoopy.
Yeah, it's a just an absolutely beautiful lady. She's very pretty. Uh, and yeah, I mean it's so if we go back to the Wikipedia page, maybe you can talk about some of this Breaker, but yeah, it's basically this Swedish guy. He asked the AI to generate the opposite of Marlon Brando, and it gave him a skyline with cryptic lettering, and then he asked for the opposite of that skyline with the cryptic lettering, and it gives Loeb. And I guess that actually doing this with a number of things leads to Loeb. It all
Yeah, and some of those images get pretty gruesome, and they usually involve some type of Cronenberg-esque body horror, where she is merging with the flesh of children and/or sacrificing and brutally murdering children in ritualistic fashion.
brilliant. Yeah, I'll just read what the article says here to give it some context. So Supercomposite says that using the image as a prompt for further images produced increasingly violent and gory results. Supercomposite speculated that something about the image could be adjacent to extremely gory and macabre imagery in the distribution of the AI's world knowledge. Supercomposite says that when they combined images of Loeb with other pictures, the subsequent results consistently return an image including Loeb, regardless of how much distortion they added to the prompts to try to remove her visage. Supercomposite speculated that the latent space region of the AI map that Loeb is located in addition to being near gruesome imagery, must be isolated enough that any combinations with other images could only use Loeb from her area and no related images due to its isolation. After enough crossbreeding of images and dilution attempts, Supercomposite was able to eventually generate images without Loeb, but found that crossbreeding those diluted images would also eventually lead to a version of Loeb to reappear in the resulting images. Oh man. So it's like
Loab is inevitable.
it's like this it's like this super aggressive gene, and even when you manage to take it to dilute it so much that it's out of the phenotype, it remains in the genotype no matter what. So when you crossbreed, then it pops back up into the phenotype. That is something about that. It's creepy.
Yeah. I was thinking to myself in regards to this, it might actually have something to do with the Jungian archetype of the devouring mother. Not that, mind you, that the AI would necessarily need to have a human-like brain or anything near a human capacity, but the information that it's drawing from is all human-produced artwork for the most part. And even if it's drawing from other derivations of AI-produced artwork, that's all traceable back to some type of human interaction and artifice at the end of the day. So what it's actually pulling out of this to create the devouring mother archetype is the latent devouring mother archetype that all human artists ever have somehow on a deep subconscious level peppered throughout their works.
Perhaps, yeah. I was just reading here. Listen to this. Super Composite had said that for various reasons they're declining to disclose the software used to create the images. Loab has been described as the first AI-generated cryptid, and as such has gone viral. Despite hyping up the cryptid nature of the discovery in their wording, Super Composite admitted that Loab isn't really haunted, of course, but noted that the mythos that has sprung up around the AI-generated character has gone beyond their initial involvement. Also, since more images of Loab are being made by other artists now, future AIs will use those images as part of their latent space maps, making her an innate part of the internet landscape now, with Super Composite adding, if we want to get rid of her, it's already too late.
Yeah, that's like a novel mutation in genetics when it's like a gene just for whatever bizarre random, you could even say this was a completely random confluence of events. So like an errant gamma ray particle flew through the right server at the right time and switched the right boolean to the right value. It's like, who knows at the end of the day in the great combinatoric sea where that random event happened. But now that it has, now that that gamma ray burst has knocked that piece of DNA and changed the code in the exact right way to produce something like this, there's no weeding the mutation out. And as long as the mutation isn't deleterious, it can persist.
Yeah, and if anything, since this has gone viral, it's actually a very positive mutation. Although I think it seems like because of its with this, I don't know if this would occur in all AIs or if this is. I think it's specific to this particular AI, but it seems as though Loab is it's like baked into the architecture of the neural network. Like it's in there. It's not like it's less that it was created and more that it was discovered.
Yep, pretty much. But you see, the thing about that is, I'm thinking about this. Like this all routes back to some type of human intent in some way. So,
yeah.
My prevailing theory about this has to do with like the nature of art itself somehow. Like you could probably find other like representations of archetypes if you do like different command prompts into the AI. That's one thing I wonder if people will try to do. Like anyone in the AI art community that just so happens to hear this, go out and try to find the other Jungian archetypes, and if you can, with this similar methodology, it'll probably be different prompts, but this will go a long way in proving Jordan B. Peterson right about Carl Jung. It's very terrifying, Buckle. It's the devouring mother archetype. It's inevitable, Buckle.
I mean, the AI is trained off of stuff that humans made, so I mean, through just a ton of I guess it's based off of human stuff, to be sure. I mean, you can look at it, and of course it's based off of human stuff. It's been like filtered and changed and twisted, but yeah, it is based off of human stuff, absolutely. I'm looking at images of Loab. Some of them are really creepy.
You know, another similar thing about the type of neural architecture of the art producing AI and the human mind is that they also did an experiment with the art AI to see if it would produce any type of similar effects of dementia or Alzheimer's. So what they did was they did like a delayed erasure of its data pool. And the more they eroded the data pool away with the same image prompt over and over and over, the more the image became degraded to the point where it was just basically refrigerator art, stick figure style art. And a very similar thing happened with a artist that had Alzheimer's, like early onset Alzheimer's. And he painted a number of portraits as he got further progressed along into the disease. He painted self-portraits of himself, and you could see the self-portraits over time degrade into like almost inhuman, barely recognizable.
Oh yeah. I know the image set that you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's like at least one similarity with the AI neural architecture and human neural architecture is like when you degrade it, a similar thing happens.
Yeah, I guess that they're I mean, the human mind and these AIs are they're neural networks. So, I mean, there's bound to be some similarity between them. Let me see if I can let me see if I can find that guy with the dementia.
He shouldn't be difficult to find. It's kind of like a meme.
Oh yeah, I think this is it. Yeah, so as as he so like the top left is, I guess, before he got dementia, and then the bottom right is when he's like fully into like super dementia, and you can see just the how it becomes more and more like abstract, and yeah, it's actually very sad to look at. It's like, oh, he's a pretty decent artist to begin with, and then goes downhill. I wonder if I wonder if some of the abstract art that exists is it comes. I mean, I guess it must. A lot of a lot of art is, there's a relationship between mental illness and art, right? So maybe it's not specifically dementia, but like a lot of the abstract art, I bet that there's mental illness behind a lot of the creation of that kind of stuff.
I mean, speaking from personal anecdotal experience, and you might be able to back this up with more robust examples in psychology, but I rarely, if ever, encounter like creative and artistic people that are neurotypical. And it's not to say that they're like blatantly crazy in some way or like stereotypically insane. It's that really creative, artistic people, especially the most successful ones, tend to be, for lack of a better term, a bit touched in the head.
Yeah. I mean, which is weird, right? Because like art is kind of like I guess I've always thought, well, not always, but for a long time I've thought that art is fundamentally the expression of the human condition, and it can take a myriad of shapes and forms, but fundamentally it says something or displays something about what the human condition is. But all the art out there is just the human condition of crazy people. Where's the boring art where it's just like, you know, the guy who works in a cubicle and he's like totally normal. He comes home every day to his wife and kids, and he drives a Subaru. Like, that guy doesn't make art, but that's the human condition for like, you know, a lot of people. Most people are normal. Someone should make boring art.
You see, that's where you're wrong, because what you're describing technically already exists, and it is very boring and anodyne, to say the least. If you've ever witnessed or heard, like, that particularly pernicious form of corporatized art and or music.
Kitsch, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, or the...
Or it's like intentionally made to be non-sublime. Like, some of it is literally like anti-sublime, where it produces no like strong emotion to like appeal to the broadest range of people possible. It seeks to poke and provoke no deeper emotions or integrations into the human experience beyond this is product. Remember jingle. Remember. It's literally like fucking hypnotism.
You know, I would argue that art can take many forms, and I think television is also a form of art. So, you know, an example of this like, very boring kind of more kitsch art, the Big Bang Theory. I think that is exactly what that's art for the normies.
Yeah, fucking Big Bang Theory. I was already with a guy one time, and this guy was like an ex-military veteran that was in the Iraq War and shit. But for some fucking reason, I can't explain what it was. He just found the fucking Big Bang Theory to be so extremely humorous and interesting that as I was trying to talk to this person about something else, because usually I just put the TV on for fucking background noise, and I've done that for decades now, until recently where I just completely cut off from TV because I didn't give a shit anymore. This guy would be like, no, it's getting to the good part. Shh, I gotta hear that joke. That wonderful joke with that canned laughter behind it when Nerd says funny thing. It was really like watching... You know those fucking experiments they did with the monkeys where they would put them in a cell and they could go to one end and get food, or they could go to the other end and get like a plush analog monkey that looked vaguely resembled a mother of the monkey.
Yeah.
And even if they rigged the fucking mother doll up to electrocute it like a fucking taser and cause it pain, it would still go to the fucking doll.
Yeah, monkey-like soft thing.
Yeah, I think Big Bang Theory is like the psychological human equivalent of monkey-like soft thing.
It's so bad though. I mean, I think it's off air at this point. I think they did a spin-off kind of like when Friends ended and they started up Joey. Big Bang Theory ended and now it's young Sheldon. Never seen it, don't care. Only ever seen one episode of The Big Bang Theory, to be fair, so, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but it seems so bad.
Yep, pretty much.
Although, you know what? Speaking of good stuff, let me see. So I was watching, I watched a movie, it's on Netflix, called, the, Sleep. It's a new movie on Netflix. Hold on. It's Slumberland. That's what it is, Slumberland. So, I'm just gonna search it up real quick. Let's see. Okay. So, this was so weird to me. So it stars Jason Momoa as I believe his name is Pip, and okay. So this happens sometimes with Rotten Tomatoes. The critics say it's 37%. Now generally speaking, that's going to be a shit movie. Okay, and then the audience says it's 88%. Now, generally speaking, that means it's going to be a pretty good movie. And so the critics and the audience, they disagree strongly on this particular movie. This happens sometimes. Like when when Dave Chappelle released one of his stand-up specials, the critics gave it like a 30%. Ah, it's terrible. And then the audience gave it like a 99. They were like, it's the most hilarious thing. And the audience was right. And generally speaking, I'm not going to say it's in every particular case, but generally speaking, the audience score is right. It seems to be way more accurate. There are places where I've been like, no, the audience is wrong here. But like 9 times out of 10, I trust the audience score. I've realized that I cannot trust the critic score whatsoever. Fucking ever. I don't know like where they're getting their review ideas from. It's the critics are completely untrustworthy. It's like flipping a coin, and oh, it's heads. Oh, great. It's no, it okay. So at one point, I think back in like 2012, 2012 Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score was pretty trustworthy. I think in many cases it was actually better than the audience score, right? So like back then, I don't know if this is like a specific example, but it's just like a theoretical example. Back then, like Transformers would come out, and it'd be like the third Transformer in the movie franchise, and I saw it and I was like, okay, this is a bunch of explosions, but that's it. There's nothing else to it. This movie is shit. The plot doesn't make any sense. The characters don't make any sense. They have like their motivations make no sense. There's nothing happening here except for a series of cool CGI explosions. And back then, the critics would be like 30%. This was shit. And then the audience would go 90%. I love explosions. So back then, I was like, okay, actually, the critics tend to be more right. I don't know what happened, but a decade later, 2022, the audience tends to be a lot more correct. And with this, Slumberland, they totally were. Dude, this movie was fucking tight. I watched it last night with my girlfriend, and she was crying by the end of it. I actually may have gotten my allergies acted up just for like a moment. Yeah, it was actually a phenomenal movie. It's a kids / family movie, but it was great, and it had a great characters, like a cool a good message that is appropriate for both kids and adults. Like I feel like a kid or an adult would actually take away different things from the movie, but yeah, it was a phenomenal movie. So I want to point that out. I liked this film. This is a good film, and the critics are they have fetal alcohol syndrome, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They don't make any sense. But yeah.
Well, that certainly sounds like a very crazy and quirky artifact of entertainment from the postmodern world we inhabit, doesn't it?
Yeah, why is it like okay, like if you're a critic, your one job, you have one job, and that is to sit down and watch stuff, and then like write up a little book report basically about why you liked it or didn't like it. Okay? Like it's not very, I don't think it doesn't seem that difficult to me. I'm not a professional critic, but that seems like a pretty chill job, I got to say. All they have to do is sit down, watch the damn movie, and just have like a decent opinion on it. If you're a critic and your opinion is going against what most people are saying about the film, maybe you're not a good critic. I mean, it's maybe.
Or maybe, like most entertainment, is some type of a top-down authoritarian propaganda control that wants you to like a certain thing and wants you to think a certain way and literally punishes you for not liking current product.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't.
And if it's a product that doesn't conform to their ideology, they punish the product by all uniformly hating it. Now, do you honestly think like an 80-20 split, like 20%, only 20% of critics had any good thing to say about this, but it's like an audience fucking smash? Like you were saying, you would think if these are like totally honest critics and they were actually functioning to the letter of their job description, it's like, hey, is this a show or a movie or an entertainment product that people should invest their time in and their money in to view? Yes or no at the end of the fucking day. It's like, what can people expect from this fucking product? That is your fucking job description as a critic. And when you're just overwhelmingly saying like all of this is shit, but then people watch it, hey, this is actually pretty good, and I'm glad I invested my time and money in it. I don't know what the fuck that guy was saying, but he sounds like an idiot.
Yeah.
Do you think the critics actually are idiots, or do you think there's some type of purposeful manipulation going on here?
Yeah, it's like with Lord of the Rings, right? Like it got it was the opposite. It was flipped. The critics were like, "Oh my god, the show is amazing," and the audience went, "Nah, this is kind of shit." And you know what? I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes of it, and it was kind of shit. I mean, it was a good looking show. Like I could tell that Amazon spent billions on it, definitely. But it was a slog to get through. It was like the pacing was so slow, and the characters were not very good. I mean, you would think that for how much money Amazon was shelling out, they could hire a couple of decent writers, but they didn't. But the critics loved that one. Why did the critics love Lord of the Rings? Well, I mean, I know why. It's because I mean, Amazon had a lot of money at stake with this show.
So are you implying that basically either the critics are getting some type of kickback monetarily or some type of compensation for this, or they're ideologically aligned with Amazon or something to that effect? Like, where does like the pure capitalistic product, like profit motivation, fade away, and where does like the malicious ideological damn the world and burn it all down if I don't get my way start? Where do those things, because people will often criticize when people like us talk about things like this. They're often going to criticize like, you can't prove any type of conspiratorial collusion with all of these companies. It's not as though they have fucking meetings in private that you're not privy to, and they talk about things that you don't get to hear. Now, these people never communicate when you can't see them.
Yeah, I would imagine that maybe like it's certainly possible that maybe some of the critics were bought off, but maybe some of the critics they're just afraid to go against Amazon. Maybe some of these critics get they get the show released to them like a week early, so they have time to watch it. I imagine that they have to watch a lot of shit. So like they have some sort of like deal going on with Amazon and whatnot. If you're a top critic, they send you the shit early, right? And then you can write up your little article, and you can have it up as soon as the movie is out, and that's good for your career, right? But if you piss Amazon off, they might say, "Oh, well, we no longer consider you to be a top critic, so we're not going to be sending you the stuff early," which would actually hurt your career. So in that case, it makes sense to, I guess, just give favorable reviews to like the big budget stuff. But then why wouldn't they do the same thing with Netflix? I don't know. Something doesn't make sense about this. Why is it that I'm showing the Lord of the Rings here, the Rings of Power, the new TV series, 85 from the critics, 39 from the audience. I saw like half of it, and then I quit watching because it was a boring slog. I couldn't get through it. It felt like a chore to watch it. I'm not the only one who felt that way. Thousands of other people that actually that have an account on Rotten Tomatoes and decided to put their score in feel exactly the same way. How is it that the critics can get this shit so wrong?
Give me the meat and give it to me raw. But anyway, I would even question, it's like, okay, in the modern day and age, what is the only function of a critic, now that everyone has social media and could just, say shit to a mass audience all the fucking time in mass numbers? I guess the only function of the critic is like they get early screenings, ? So I guess that's literally the only thing that they do in this modern day and age, because a long time ago it'd be like, hey, should I drive across town to movie theater and pay X amount of dollars to see a thing? I know my friends around is like some friends say meh, some friends say yay. What is like a more concise and professional opinion that watches a lot of movies that I know watches a lot of movies? What do those people say? Critics used to make a lot more sense in that context, but now that you could go on all these fucking websites where basically people have no life and all they do is watch movies, technically everyone is literally a critic. And they all have fucking bullhorns on the internet. They're just blasting their opinions everywhere all the time. Now, they might not be as well articulated as like some type of English literature major that also happens to be a quote-unquote employed movie critic professionally. But really, the only thing the critic does nowadays is like the early fucking screening. That's literally it.
You know, actually, I think that I might know who's at fault here for this this thing where critics become bad at their jobs. I think it's Rotten Tomatoes itself. And it's very simple, right? It's just it's a system of incentives, right? Now, it used to be that, you know, if you wanted to know if a movie was, you know, worth going to see, you would look at your paper, and the paper would have like one or two dedicated movie critics in it, and like you knew who it was, you know, like this guy, like I don't know, his name is like fucking, you know, John Smith. I know, like I've read John Smith a whole bunch of times. You know, he's good at criticizing these movies. He's good at telling me which ones are good and not good to watch. I trust him. So if he says that it's a good movie to go see, I'll trust him and I'll go see it, and I'll, you know, spend $10 to go see it at the theater. But with Rotten Tomatoes, it's an aggregator. So there's no longer an individual critic's reputation being on the line, right? It's this mass group of critics, and they said, yeah, Lord of the Rings is good, and there's there's no accountability, right? Like I don't know any of these critics, so and that makes that whole thing way more manipulatable. Like, you know, Amazon just, you know, maybe they get their own critics to be like, oh yeah, this was great, and you know, they just enter in a whole bunch of votes into the Rotten Tomatoes, and there you have it. Oh, it turns out that the director of the Rings of Power thought it was phenomenal. He's a critic. Yeah, let's throw his rating up there. Like,
it's definitely, there's like definitely a quantity over quality thing happening here with all this like mass aggregation shit.
Yeah, but
okay, there's a problem with that though. Not so much for the professional critic side, because basically professional critics are kind of just like an apparatchik of the movie companies now that are all bought and fucking paid for. So what's really the fucking point? It's like, do you believe that the thing that your boss told you to say is good, yes or no? Be careful what you say. It's like, that's basically all the fucking professional critics are good at. But as far as the other side, like the mass aggregation side of it, I mean, if you consider like the definition of pop culture, it's defined by what is popular. So technically ad populum arguments in this specific context, in this special logical case,
they make sense,
are no longer fallacious.
Yeah, they're the best thing to go with in this particular category.
Yeah, because I want to know what's popular. What does everyone think is popular? If you're interested in popular things, now there might be like niche markets, like I'm a rebel and a hipster and a postmodernist, and I want to be contrary, so I want to watch things that are unpopular. Well, there's a whole group of people on the internet for like, here are the most unpopular things. Like, oh, what's really unpopular? So it works both ways.
Let's see what the Big Bang Theory got. Wow. 81% from the critics, 83% from the audience. Everyone agrees the Big Bang Theory is it's pretty good. It's not
yeah, but like I explained before, that's like the entertainment equivalent of monkey think fuzzy thing is good regardless, even if it causes it pain. The people that worked on that show really knew what they were doing.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's not amazing. It's pretty good apparently, and everyone agrees. I don't think that we here at the Promethean Tides would agree with. You know what? Actually, in this case, we would be the shitty critics because we would be saying that it's awful. But you know what? The audience loved it. So who are we to stand here and say that the Big Bang Theory is bad? It's pretty good.
Well, we're just assholes with opinions, and at the end of the day, in aggregate, that's actually the best demarcator of what you should probably think is popular and worth your time at the end of the fucking day. I mean, if millions of people spend billions of dollars on fucking Star Wars, I mean, I guess Star Wars is popular. But then again, popularity doesn't necessarily denote quality.
Star Wars was kitsch. Like, it's not art. That is like a great example of kitsch. I'm talking about the...
Yeah, it's always been kitsch from the very beginning.
I mean, maybe. I really liked the first three, especially The Empire Strikes Back. But when Disney got their grubby little hands on it, they turned it into complete shit. But they have a lot of money, so they can market it, and they can have really cool special effects, and they can force it to be popular, right? That's a thing that if you have enough money and enough resources and a decent marketing team, you can force something that would otherwise be completely unpopular to be extremely popular. And Disney is very good at that.
Yep, I think that's something we could both agree on, honestly.
I think Disney is probably...
If you think about it, even George Lucas himself, when he was talking about the original Star Wars, even in the actual creator's opinion, was like, the most I ever thought of the first movie was it was going to be like something that drunken, weed-smoking college kids watched, and it had a good laugh. It had like a romance plot. It had like, the jock got the girl, yeah. And the nerd is a meditating virgin, yeah. It was that fucking angle.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that... Okay. I think that Pixar was originally not part of Disney, and then it got like bought and became part of Disney. But for the most part, I hate just about everything that Disney produces. It's like the Big Bang Theory of movie studios. They every single like Disney films do not go away from their established formula. You have enter good guy. Hello, this is good guy. We've introduced good guy. Oh, look at this. There is bad guy. Bad guy is bad. Good guy has conflict with bad guy. Oh no, there's some conflict, and then the good guy has to do some stuff to defeat the bad guy. And now, at the end of the film, good guy has won. Please clap. And that's every single Disney movie. Every single Marvel movie, it's that. Every single Star Wars movie, it's that. They're all the same. And like I know it's not just Disney that does that, but it's so formulaic with Disney movies. You know, especially with the Marvel movies, you know exactly what's going to happen from the beginning of the movie. Oh, okay, this is good guy. I can tell. Oh, this is bad guy. I can tell. Because good guy is either attractive or a woman or something, and then bad guy is they just look evil. They look ugly. They're bad. You know it. And then good guy wins. Good guy wins at the end. Oh my god! I'm so surprised the good guy won. Oh wow! I really felt that in Act 2 that good guy might actually like die, but oh no, good guy survived. How surprising! Wow. I mean, it's god. The worst example...
Yeah, even if you take, like, the modern ideology out of it. Even if you take the SJW ideology out of it, like, this bad guy lost in the end, yay, and good guy won in the end, yay. That's kind of like it's always been the quote-unquote popular thing, because I think it's, like, maybe it's just me. I don't know how you feel about this particular thing, because I don't know if we ever got this specific about it, but... things with, like, morally ambiguous plots and characters where the motivation, even by the end, might not match up with your expected, like, default moral settings or what you would have expected to happen in this situation. Well, there is kind of the trope of the anti-hero, like the Breaking Bad Walter White thing, where he's kind of like a meth dealer. Like it gets into that whole angle, but that's more like a. That's also a very ancient thing. That's the lovable rogue archetype that I'll say that.
Yeah. I think that it's nice. It doesn't happen that often, but it's nice when the bad guy wins, right? Like one of my favorite movies of all time, Fight Club. Bad guy wins. In theory, bad guy is Tyler Durden. I'm more partial to Tyler.
Yeah,
Durden.
that's like a perfect example of moral ambiguity. It's like who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. In the end, it literally is this esoteric blending where there is no distinction of good and evil.
But following the formula of that movie, at the end of it, bad guy, questionable whether he's actually bad or not. It really depends on your opinion. But bad guy wins. Bad guy blows up all of the skyscrapers. He wins. That's amazing. Because it's different. It's like, oh my god, bad guy won. More recently, one of my new favorite animes of all time, Cyberpunk Edge Runners. I would recommend it. Check it out. Bad guy wins. Good guy dies. In fact, good guy's entire squad dies, and bad guy wins. Big corporate monolith wins, and that's it. That's all there is to it. There's no redemption. Bad guy wins. Those are good stories, if only for the fact that I guess it's two things, right? Number one, it's more realistic. Yeah, sometimes the bad guy does win. Like life is not a series of good guy victories. Oftentimes in life, bad guys win. In fact, I would argue that bad guys win more often than good guys in real life. But also, it's different. Like at least it's something different. It shows some creativity. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Amazing, fantastic movie. There is kind of a bad guy, but is bad guy actually bad guy? I mean, that movie was so out there, in the weeds. I think there was no such thing as a good guy or a bad guy in it at the end of it. But like these are interesting movies. But what does Disney do? They go in with Endgame, right? I watched what was shit what was Endgame the first one or the second one?
I think it was the second one.
What was the first one? Oh, Infinity War.
Yeah. If you're talking about the Avengers movie,
it was,
Infinity War, yeah.
Yeah. So I actually liked Infinity War. It was like one of the only Marvel movies that I enjoyed, because I was like, oh shit, Thanos won. Half the population is gone now. I don't know, like Spider-Man is dead or whatever. Like a whole bunch of people are dead. Half the people are dead now. I was like, okay, that's actually gritty and real, and I would love to see, like, you know, having the balls to just kill off half of your money printing superheroes and just have them like out. That raises the stakes. That makes this universe a lot more interesting. That Disney would actually sacrifice like some of these characters in order to make a more interesting and compelling story that actually gets you into it. And then Endgame happened, and then they said, oh well, Deus Ex Machina, we have a time machine, so we're just gonna fix it, and that's it. Good guys won. I hated Endgame.
Yeah, good guys always win in the freaking end.
When it comes to Disney, yeah, I hated Endgame. Infinity War was awesome. Endgame made Infinity War suck.
The one problem I have being like the villain of Thanos. If you pay close enough attention, you'll kind of notice that Thanos isn't even technically a villain. His motivations and all of his characterizations fall more in line with that of a hero, aside from the fact that his one key motivation and his like grand scheme is like diametrically opposed to the heroes wanting to save and preserve and protect people. He literally wants to kill half of everything in the universe for some type of Malthusian plot. But everything besides that, like, Thanos literally perseveres, sacrifices, and doesn't let his ego get in the way of his ultimate goals, to the point where when he does quote-unquote win, you don't necessarily feel bad that the bad guy won, because he literally fucking earned it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Thanos was a boss, and he turned out to be stronger than all the heroes combined, and it was only through some bullshit time travel that he was able to lose. And it's like, how can you account for time travel, honestly? Yeah. And Thanos was actually, I was on his side. Honestly, his idea didn't make a lot of sense, because if you eliminate half of everyone, they'll just have more babies, and eventually you'll get right back up to like how high the population was in like a couple generations, whatever. But I liked him as a character. I think in The Dark Knight, the Joker, played by Heath Ledger, that was a likable character. I straight up was rooting for Joker the entire time. I liked Joker. He was a cool guy. He's just misunderstood, and I was hoping that he would beat the Batman. Of course, he didn't. Good guys have to win. But man, it would be nice if Joker won, and also if Heath Ledger hadn't died. But to take us off topic here for a bit, actually, everything is off topic. Okay. Now, people often, they say like, who would win in a fight? Goku or Superman? Okay, that's boring. All right, that's a boring question. I would say it's. I don't know the answer myself. I'm not super big into the Superman lore or the Goku lore. From what I've heard, it would probably be Goku, I guess, but I'm not saying anything definitive. But here's the thing: One Punch Man would beat them both. Okay, because it's One Punch Man. We all know One Punch Man is the strongest. He can beat anything. He could probably beat up Jesus. But you know who would beat One Punch Man? And I hate to say it, but it's true. Doctor Who could beat One Punch Man, because time travel. It's a bullshit technology. I hate whenever it's introduced into stories, but this is what all Doctor Who has to do is go back in time, kill One Punch Man's mother, and then he's never born. Boom, defeated. Doctor Who can basically beat anyone.
Assuming it's in a universe where the time travel rules or like incorporate the grandfather paradox in that particular way, and not the like quantum fracture time travel rules, where if you were to do something like that would result in a grandfather paradox, you just create a separate branching timeline. But in the original timeline, One Punch Man would still beat Doctor Who in that timeline, but the Doctor Who in the other timeline would be still alive. So technically, it's like a 50-50 shot. He would only like half beat him by those time travel rules. It's like, whatever time travel rules you're fucking using would determine all of this.
Yeah, and I mean, true, but I mean, time travel is such a bullshit thing to include in any story. Whenever it happens, it pisses me off. But also, by the way, I want to point this out, and this is upsetting to me. But Doctor Who would be able to beat Rick from Rick and Morty, right? Because Rick, and this is something that I do respect about Rick and Morty. He can jump between dimensions, but time travel is not something that's allowed in that universe. If they were to if they can break the fourth wall, they can do all this stuff. They can hop into a dimension where pizza is eating people instead of people eating pizza. Whatever, that's fine. They never do time travel. Doctor Who can. Doctor Who could beat Rick, which I think is true, but I hate it.
Well, the main problem that Doctor Who would have in the Rick and Morty universe is he would have to track down what was the original universe that Rick came from, because if you remember in Rick and Morty, the Rick that we see through most of the show now isn't actually from the universe that he's currently occupying. So that would be the one obstacle in Doctor Who's past, like, I need to go back in time in the right dimension.
Oh yeah, I guess Doctor Who, I don't think that he can dimension hop, so he could only kill the Rick that is in his dimension. He couldn't get all of them. So
And the Rick in the current dimension in Rick and Morty is already dead, because when Rick and Morty teleported, they killed them both.
that's true. Well, but then again, I mean, in theory, every dimension would have its own Doctor Who. So if all of the Doctor Who's from all the dimensions were to try to, I don't know. You know what? That's maybe it's not so clear cut. I'm not sure.
Now, if it was the female Doctor Who, she would probably lose, because, I mean, she would blame patriarchy and toxic masculinity, and then she would torture a black child. So,
You know, I haven't seen a single episode of the female Doctor Who. I've heard that it became a lot less popular after they did that. So
yeah, that kind of shit on the whole canon of what the origin of Doctor Who was in the first place. So, yeah, it turns out the original Doctor Who was just basically a white colonial parasite that sucked all of his powers out of a black girl.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen a single episode, but I also have no interest in it. I've heard that it's super woke. It was never like, I don't think Doctor Who was ever an amazing show. It was always kind of mediocre, but I did watch it like way back in the day, like a decade ago, maybe more. Yeah, well, yeah, more than a decade ago. When it was like Matt Smith, it was playing it, and then before him it was that one guy, the guy who played before Matt Smith. What's his name? I forget. He was the best. The one that came before Matt Smith, I think that was my favorite Doctor Who. Whatever his name was, he was good. I'm blanking on his name.
Yay. I remember, though, there was like another... There was someone else that could beat One Punch Man, and it had to do with dream manipulation powers.
Like sleep manipulation powers, like Sandman or Freddy Krueger, maybe.
Yeah, Freddy Krueger would probably have a very good chance again, but then again, the thing that One Punch Man is...
David Tennant was who came before Matt Smith. That was my favorite
yeah,
Doctor.
Tennant. Yeah. Well, good for him. I mean, yay. Freddy Krueger would actually have a problem beating One Punch Man, though. Like, even if he could, like, get him in his sleep. The problem is the main thing that One Punch Man is kind of afraid of isn't actually deadly. So, Freddy Krueger wouldn't have a lot to work with, and One Punch Man's greatest fear, he just lives every day, because he never has a challenging opponent and he beats everyone with one punch. So he's literally facing his fear every day, but his fear is literally nothing that can ever hurt him, and that's the source of the fear.
I mean, to be fair, he does have a very intensive workout regimen. I think it's 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and he runs a mile like every day. Woo. I mean, very intense.
I can respect that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there are. Okay, Sandman. I watched the show Sandman. He's like the god of sleep. I think that he might be able to beat One Punch Man, because number one, he kind of sort of beat Lucifer herself in the show. Lucifer's a girl. So he beat Lucifer, and he does it all through like dream stuff. So like I don't know if you can. One Punch Man, he's stronger than everyone in just base reality. But if you get him, if you start doing time travel, or if you start like maybe like getting into his dreams or something, and like maybe you can beat him there. I don't know. It's uh we need to get like a super lore like a lore nerd here who understands all these universes like super well, and they'll be able to tell us definitively who would win in all of these fights.
Well, going back to the original Superman versus Goku, technically Goku lost against Superman because Superman basically has this one ability where he can just kind of melt a synapse deep in your brain and drop you dead instantly. So, but Superman being Superman, yeah, he actually can. It has to do with his heat vision. He can.
No, but you have to remember that Goku's synapses are themselves armored, probably. So maybe it wouldn't work. You never know.
I know in the death battle they had Superman winning, but this is like the eternal fucking quandary. I mean, the problem with Goku is he's not. It's not so much that he's not smart enough, although that's a big problem with it. If it was Vegeta, he would probably be conniving and smart enough to figure this out. But Superman has several very exploitable weaknesses. Like if you get him away from the sun or expose him to kryptonite, he's kind of fucked. But Goku wouldn't do that because, one, he's like a goody two-shoes that wants to fight people at their best, and two, he wouldn't be smart enough to figure out to get him away from the sun. It would kind of be like Superman, like a watered-down version of Superman versus Hulk. Like, Superman is so much smarter than the Hulk that he could just avoid him and like throw him into space and get him away from the people until he calmed down and stopped raging.
100% of the time, Superman beats the Hulk. Like that's not even a question. But
now Hulk is stronger, and he could do things like throw Superman away from the sun or pick up a kryptonite meteor, but he's not smart enough to think of that.
I mean, also Hulk can't even fly, right? Like you can only like jump.
Yeah, that's a major problem. Well, he can jump between planets, so that fucking jump is a motherfucker.
I didn't realize he could do that. That's a jump so strong that he would like wreck.
He shattered the ground. Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing, right? I know, from canon, that Batman beats Superman. Okay. So Batman can beat Superman. Superman can beat Goku, and I'm pretty sure that Goku could beat Batman. So actually, what we have is like a rock paper scissors, right? Except it's Batman, Superman, Goku.
Yeah, and Batman, the advantage he has is he's smarter than Goku, and Batman doesn't have any superpowers, so he literally has to compensate by being more like ingenuitive.
No,
he has to think outside of the box.
Here's the thing, right? The reason why Batman can beat Superman is because he's smart enough to realize that Superman has a weakness. It's called kryptonite. As far as I know, Goku does not have a weakness, so I don't think that Batman would be able to beat Goku. So Superman beats Goku, Goku beats Batman, Batman beats Superman. That's it. That's the holy trinity.
Well, I think Batman would have a chance against Goku because Batman could figure out, like, Goku's main weakness is eating massive amounts of food. So I was like, if I put some type of sleeping powder or something in Goku's food, it will cause him to faint and he won't be able to fight.
I mean, maybe, but that's not a fight. That's like poisoning.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're going by who can beat who. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a fight. It's like who can win.
No, but like in a fight, Batman beat Superman because he made himself like, I don't know, a suit that was armored with kryptonite or some shit like that. I don't know. I didn't see it. I know.
Yeah, and now that you mention it, in that case, Goku has fought armored opponents to great success in the past. So, and he doesn't have the kryptonite weakness, so Batman's super armor wouldn't be so much of a match against Goku because he's fought like T-Rexes and armored cyborgs and all kinds of shit. So.
Well, there you have it. We came up with a new Rochambeau. It's like a carrot gun rabbit. Do you know that one?
This is just the nerd show. Like, title this podcast the Nerd Hour.
Yeah.
We started talking about AIs and evolution and the Troxler effect. It's like, this is all just nerd stuff. And then we got into movies, and now we're talking about superheroes and who'd win in a fight. This is just an evening at the comic store. The only thing missing is the Hearthstone cards.
Yeah, this is just it's pure stream of consciousness. That's how you do it. Okay, well, how about this? Let's get into something mildly politics related. So, I was talking to someone the other day, and I was thinking about this. So, as things stand right now, I think that people who pay no attention to politics, but just get a mail-in voting ballot and just, say, yeah, I'm Democrat, whatever. Those are the people who vote Democrats. That's why the Democrats are able to win as much as they can. It's the low information, lowest common denominator voters who are doing so via mail-in ballot because they care so little they wouldn't even be bothered enough to show up to the polling places. Now the on the more Republican side, I think that while they may not also be that informed, depending on who you're talking about, I think on average they're more informed. I would say probably significantly more informed, and they are willing to go and show up to the actual physical polling place. A lot of the conservatives or Republican voters, they didn't want to do the mail-in voting. They don't trust it or whatever. They don't like it. So here's what I'm thinking. If this continues as it is, then during the big elections where we vote for president, you'll get a lot more blue turnout. So everyone will vote, because that's important enough for them to oh yeah, I want to vote for the president. It's important. Everyone the presidential vote is it's like the Super Bowl. Everyone watches it. They're like, oh shit. But only the dedicated fans actually pay attention and vote in the midterms. So this is what I think might happen if this trend continues. The Democrats will continuously occupy the executive branch. Due to the structure of how things are and how they're going, they will always get the executive branch, especially if that whatever the name of that project is goes through, where the states they all enough of them decide that they'll do it by popular just straight Democratic popular vote, and I guess legally find a way around the Electoral College, which I think would cause some constitutional problems. But if they decided to do that, then yeah, Democrats, they have the executive branch just forever, and then because the Republicans will get way more turnout during the midterms, the Republicans will get more of the Senate and the Congress, and also local elections like state senators, governors, all the local state stuff. The Republicans will start winning that. So the Democrats will always be able to maintain the executive, and then the Republicans will have the legislative. I was thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, you know what? That could happen.
Yeah, I mean, judging by how everything's going now, that doesn't sound too far from reality. I guess that kind of means that, I mean, at that point, it's just like a ruling elite monarchy all over again, technically.
Yeah. The monarchy gets to be Democrat, and more of the lords get to be Republican. And that sounds kind of abysmal, but honestly, would it be that bad? I mean, at that point, the legislative and the executive would always be fighting with each other. It would be nigh impossible to get anything passed, and the government just wouldn't do anything. And I'm in favor of the government not doing anything. That's how the founding fathers intended it. That's why they set up such a, the division of powers. It's a Byzantine system where it's impossible to get anything done. That was the original intention. Have the government, have it be very difficult for the government to do anything. Maybe it wouldn't be that bad.
Well, that's usually like the libertarian ethos, I suppose. Insofar as that the government really does anything at all, at least in my humble opinion, the most I ever think that the government should be frickin' involved in at any given time is just defending the sovereignty of the fucking nation, first and foremost. Everything else is kind of like localized and more ancillary, because when like small collectives of people get together, like in villages or even smaller down to the level of a family, most of the time nature just has a way of banging that out. Because it's been doing that for God knows how many millennia now with humans. So small localized collectives of humans just seem to have a natural tendency to deal with their own shit. Whereas like this massive overarching top-down control seems to always come and go with the tides, and then a bunch of other people gives like resources and prestige and power, and then they start fighting, and it turns into more fights between the elites, and then another elite shows up at your local farm and says, "You're paying taxes to me now," and you're just like, "Huh, I didn't notice."
All the while, sucking everyone that isn't in that elite system dry, and just gaining as much resources and power for themselves. Yeah, I think that it's. I guess it's something about humans. Like, if we were ants, I think that we would do much better under like a large and heavy federal government where we're all self-sacrificing.
That's when your fucking phenotype is kind of set up in the ant situation. Like, basically, if you're all sterile drones and the only replicator is the fucking queen, I mean, under that paradigm, it would make perfect sense to have a top-down authoritarian structure, because that just makes natural sense.
Yeah, and there are certain countries, let's say like China, that really try to go after that particular phenotype. But unfortunately, at least here in America, I don't think that we have much of that phenotype. It seems like we have limitations with Dunbar's number, and I think we do way better with more localized governorship. Because like, okay, if I'm in a town with 40 people, and it's a small town, there's like 40 people in it, then my interests will be heard, and they'll probably be represented because I'm 1/40th of the goddamn population. I will be able to talk directly to the mayor of that town because there's 40 people. So I have much more of a say in things. On the federal level, when you have 300 million people, there's no it breaks down. There's no way to govern that many people effectively. It's too big. Humans aren't built for that sort of thing, and instead what we've created is basically just a massive corporate government hybrid that just continuously extracts more and more wealth from everyone else in the country, and tells them that it's making things better while actively making things worse. That's the system that currently exists. I hate it.
Well, if you think of where all these different populations of people originated from and the environmental pressures, but I don't know if that's something that you were allowed to talk about on YouTube because, Stefan Molyneux got banned for that.
We certainly wouldn't ever talk about. Let me say it like this. Clearly, as all of the best scientists know, there is no genetic difference between humans. We are blank slates, tabula rasa, out of the womb. It is not nature has nothing to do with the difference between people. It is 100% strictly nurture all of the time. That is the correct opinion, and we will not hear any other opinions here on Promethean Tides. That's a guarantee.
Yep. The only fair election is a fully fortified election.
Also that, yes, we want to make that very clear to anyone from YouTube that might be listening. We have the correct opinion.
And anything that a major pharmaceutical company slaps the label of vaccine upon just becomes de facto essentially good on a platonic level.
That's right, because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. No matter what the prevention is, it's worth it.
Exactly. These are all things that everyone should agree on. And if you don't, feel free to leave in the comments if you disagree with us, so that way we'll know where to send the glow in the darks.
Get banned and vanned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. See, that's I think that a lot of the I don't know how to actually make this happen. It seems extremely difficult. But I support making the federal government way smaller and take all of the most of the power that the federal government has and give it to the states. The purpose of the federal government really should be what's outlined just in the Constitution. Everything else is up to the states. So, look at abortion, right? The argument that Republicans made in the Supreme Court for abortion is not that it should be banned nationwide via the federal government. I mean, I think there was one Republican guy who recommended that. What was it? What was his name? Lindsay something? Not that. The Supreme Court said, hey, you know what? Abortion, it's not up to the federal government. You give it to the states. So more localized governorship. I mean, a state is still pretty big, especially a state like California. But you give it back to the states. Let the states decide. If California can do what they want, Texas can do what they want. Whatever. More localized government is going to be better government that is better suited to meet the needs of the people. You only get the federal government involved when it's basically constitutional, or when it comes to the military, right? Like, obviously, I mean, some people who support balkanization may disagree with me, but I think that from the perspective of dealing with other countries on the world stage, the federal government has to be able to control the military. We can't have 50 different militaries. I don't think that would be nearly as effective. So the role of the federal government is to have the military. We have a commander-in-chief. And then they just make sure that all the states are abiding by, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. By the way, a lot of states are not abiding by the Second Amendment, and for some reason the federal government just doesn't care. Yeah, I mean, that's what we should do. Instead, we don't do that. We have a massive federal government that takes care of everyone in the least efficient and most harmful of ways that it possibly can, because it's the federal government, and that's what it does. Hooray.
Yeah, this will eventually run into some type of bureaucratic corrupting impasse where states will get to the point where they say fuck you to the federal government more and more, until the federal government is like, motherfucker, do you want the money to build the roads? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, well, I guess you're going to have to find it yourself, because you're not getting any more funds from the Fed. And then states would have to raise taxes, so this turns into the libertarians' paradox, where it's like, okay, you realize these roads cost billions of dollars a year to maintain, so either your taxes take a massive fucking spike, or make the drinking age 21 everywhere throughout the country. That's how the drinking age got 21, by the way. It was just a federal reach around.
Right. Yeah.
They said, make it 21 or no road money.
Yeah. it's a very, very not cool thing to do by the government, by the federal government. But the federal government taking so many people's dollars via specifically like the income tax and also like Social Security and whatnot. I mean, this is all relatively new stuff. Like it wasn't in the original way that America was set up for the federal government to be able to tax people so much. What if a state like Texas just decided, hey, we're gonna raise state taxes by like we're gonna double state taxes, okay? And oh, you hear that, you're like, oh, that doesn't sound good. No, Texas goes, we're gonna double state taxes. Fuck it, triple, quadruple state taxes, whatever. But we've decided that the federal government has no right to extract Social Security and income tax from you. They don't have any right to do that. So you will no longer be paying your federal taxes, or at least you won't be paying most of your federal taxes. The people in Texas, even quadruple the state taxes, whatever. The people in Texas would end up paying less money in taxes total, and then all that extra money Texas could use to fund their own roads. They don't need the federal government if they were allowed to do their own thing.
I guess that is a good point that you raise.
But then
I don't know enough about the particulars of taxation and law and stuff to really have a detailed conversation about this, but I know, in my opinion, the more localized people's day-to-day affairs are, especially in a place like America where, like, freedom to practice religion is kind of ensconced within it. Now, a lot of the things that you and I tend to strangely agree upon, even though I'm way more authoritarian than you, is that the way this particular country that we're often talking about, because we both live here, the way this is like set up on a metaphysical level from the ground up, there is no overarching like spiritual entity, there is no unifying religion, there is no unification and of the ethos of the people on a metaphysical basis. It's kind of just like, well, there's the Protestants over here and the Catholics over there and the Hindus on that side of town. It's like all these religions are kind of just mishmashed everywhere. So you kind of need to have like little enclaves where it's like, hey, this is a Protestant enclave and we don't want to see Catholics around here and vice versa. Eventually this ends in some type of discrimination. And it necessarily has to do that.
It does, you're right. But, I mean, the last thing that we would want is discrimination. That's the most evil thing that could possibly happen to a person. We all agree. But also, I guess that if you don't have some of that stuff, then your civilization, how are you supposed to run a civilization without some of that localized stuff? I mean, you make everyone just an individual atomized worker or drone, and they just exist at the company. And yes, you may have whatever religious ideas that you would like, but do not express them. They're your own. They're entirely eternal. You are atomized. You will use Tinder to find the one woman, and you will reproduce with her and produce one child, if you're lucky, and you will live in the pod, and you will be happy, and you will own nothing. Like, that's eventually, I feel like that's what that results in, and I don't like that either. Like, there has to be a sense of community for people to build anything.
Yeah, then unfortunately, another side effect of that inevitable, like, cultural and religious discrimination would eventually end up in all the weird, oddball outsider people kind of like necessarily getting kicked into the liberal cities, because none of like the flyover states, like atomized enclaves of Protestants, Catholics, and various other cultures and religions and thought processes and worldviews want you around. Like, even like a very fine and morally upstanding atheist though you may be, yeah, you're going to hell, so fuck you, go to the city. And they will literally kick you into the city, because they will like turn their backs on you. Like ultra-Orthodox religious communities, If you don't fit in, they just ignore you like you're not even there. Like, you can't buy anything, you can't interact with no one will talk to you. It's like something from a fucking Stephen King book.
That's true. That is true, and that would be unfortunate. However, I do want to make one correction. I would not consider myself to be an atheist.
Yes, it's like, yeah, I remember. I guess I'm the atheist in the room then, so it's like, but I'm kind of like consigned to being the eternal outsider all the time. And you might find that strange that...
I don't find that strange. You have all the characteristics of an outsider.
But I'm not a liberal or a libertarian, though, so that makes it weird. Nor am I a collectivist of any kind.
You want small, localized, authoritarian rule, but small. Many, many, many tiny kingdoms.
Yeah, it's like the problem with that coming, like we saw it happen in England thousands of years ago. Eventually it all just gets consolidated anyway through a bunch of different people it could be of their own total free volition. Like, you don't even need coercion to do this, although coercion would be a part of this by dint of human nature. It wouldn't necessarily be a necessary component of it.
Well, don't they have that?
People?
Don't they have that in the Middle East though? Like, they just have a series of tribes that just kind of like wander out there in the desert. I mean,
yeah, and they're always usually being embroiled in some type of deadly conflict and civil war of some kind.
Yeah, just a like 1,000 warlords just wandering the desert with their each one has their own tribe. I mean, maybe
that is someone whose interpretation of the Quran differs ever so slightly from my own.
It's like,
I'm being hyperbolic and ridiculous here, but if you have eyes to see, I mean, it's right there.
It's like like somewhere in the Quran it says like and then Muhammad sat under a tree. And then, like, the two warlords are like, yo, that tree, that was an oak tree. The other one's like, no, that was a fucking, I don't know what trees are native to the Middle East.
A cypress tree, let's say, for the sake of argument. Yeah, it was a different fucking tree. It's like, yeah. And it could be, like, from an outsider's perspective, it seems like really fucking stupid and petty at that level. I mean, come the fuck on, people. But really, though, it's... From their perspective, the symbology of those different trees and their different metaphysical, symbolic meanings, you could interpret the Quran in different ways, and if that happens, it'll break the cohesion of Islam, and that's not allowed. So it's like, I guess we have to fight to the death over this. There's no way to resolve this.
They're very serious about it. They don't like disagreements.
Yeah.
I
think that's going to be the main problem in, like, getting massive numbers of humans together to do any type of, like, this massive conglomeration of technology and innovation that allows these type of conversations and videos to even exist in the first place. Like, so very much of this literally requires, like, massive churning factories of human meat byproduct that every now and then, just by statistical brute force, you get enough geniuses and relatively intelligent managerial type people that are otherwise not necessarily geniuses together enough, like you have enough Elon Musks and John Carmacks to make a fucking iPhone or something. If those people are all scattered out and thousands of miles away from each other in different cultural and religious contexts, and they don't really intercommunicate through sometimes divine edicts, you don't have the iPhone and you don't have the internet.
You know, the weird thing about the internet is that it's allowed people to build non-local communities. Like, you can have a tight-knit community, and they can live on different sides of the globe. There's positives to that, but also I feel like there's some massive negatives when your community is just out there in the ether. I will say this. I don't know my neighbor. I've never spoken to my neighbor. But I'm good friends with people that I've never seen. Like, that's a weird state of affairs. Like, how do you possibly, like, hold together, like, an actual physical community when that is the case. Like it's strange. I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, that's always going to be the fucking eternal problem because humans are very not the frickin' pure Borg hive mind collectivists that the Marxists would want them to be, nor are humans necessarily like this staunch and ardent absolutist where everything is regimented and ritualized and everything is like by the book, like a bunch of stoic knights standing guard around Queen Elizabeth. That's not like the pure nature of humanity, nor, as you and I have argued many times, is the purest nature of humanity libertarianism. It's some type of confluence between these things that there is necessarily going to be, as a main component of this, some type of friction and disagreement, and it's like you hope sometimes, although you can hope in one hand and piss in the other and see which one fills up first, that people don't bring it to violence. But us being like realistic about this, we know all too often that is the case of where it goes. So but then if you get too much violence, then the cohesion breaks down and you just have like Mad Max world. So at the end of the day, you've got to have some type of fucking hammer that lays down the law and says, you're not allowed to kill each other. Everyone trying to kill each other, I'm going to kill you first. And then you've got to have people, it's like, well, what about the disabled people and the freaks and the people that can't do anything? We need to provide charity to them. And then you've got the fucking geniuses and outside-the-box thinker libertarian types who are just like, all you guys are full of shit, and I'm going to think in a cave or work with some tinker toys on my ivory tower mountain and figure something out and make a new innovation to fix something. Like, you got to have all three of these different types working, not always in perfect concert, but at least working functionally.
I think that a lot of people, and I think that this is probably myself included, they have their political beliefs are relative to the current system, right? So it's like I'm a libertarian. I want smaller government. But that's in the context of living in America with a massive, way overstuffed federal government that tries to control everything, and they don't just do it through, their arms of the FBI, CIA, NSA. They also do it through their control of corporations. It's too big. I don't like it. But if you put me in like just fucking Mad Max world, I would probably be saying, "Hey guys, I think we need a government." Like I would be the one that's the statist going, "Guys, we need to. This is crazy. We need to clean this shit up." So I think I kind of agree with you. I think that the answer is probably like the way that you build a decent civilization is probably not any political ideology. It's not within the minds of man to reason out what the best system is, because in fact the best system is probably not able to be reasoned out by the minds of man. It's more like just an emergent phenomenon that is highly complex with a whole bunch of feedback loops, that creates something that is tolerable, right? It's kind of like you. It's like how you can't reason out how it is that a cell is alive, right? Like if you actually like sit down and try to figure out how it is that a cell is alive, you're dealing with 20,000 genes, and then a combinatoric explosion of gene interactions that all come together through the process of emergence to produce something that is alive. And that process of emergence, that's a black box. There's no person on Earth that understands how that happens. You can simulate it with computers, kind of. And like the computer will spit out something that kind of behaves like it's alive. So you can simulate it, maybe. But there's no mind on the planet that can actually understand it. And maybe it's the same thing with all these political ideologies. You get your Marxists, your anarcho-capitalists, all these sort of things, and like if you take any of them to their extremes, they break down, because it's like if you took a cell and you were like, well, I like phospholipids. Let's make the whole cell phospholipids. Well, then it's not alive anymore, and then you've ruined everything. I don't know. I don't know if that's. I'm trying to make an analogy here. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it that well, but
Yeah, I've actually thought about that to some degree, and we've actually talked about this before off the show. But I think what you're describing, the closest thing that I know that gets to any sort of comprehension of the black box, as you put it, with the combinatoric explosion, is something like a transcendental experience. Like something that people used to call like religious experiences, but in the modern day and age, like, not that religions are going away anytime soon, mind you, I don't really believe that, but going forward, people like all these Fedora bro atheists are going to have to figure out some way of getting re-enchanted with the things that, as you so aptly laid out, are not discretizable and atomizable to all of these easily manageable interactions. And the things that used to do that were like archetypes, like transcendent godheads, like these things that kind of like cross-reference throughout different points in history and are prophetic in a way and recycle and use like, oh, it's the prophecy of Jormungandr and Thimblewinter reoccurring again. It's not so much that it was a distinctly delineated time in this discrete sense, like in the year so-and-so this happened. It's more like this eternal, like, co-happening, a meta-happening that's always happening throughout all of time.
Yeah, it's like I think that with mankind's pursuit of science and reason above all else, there emerged this idea that we could science and reason ourselves into the correct way to run a civilization, the correct political ideology. But you can't, is the thing. That thing doesn't exist, and if it does exist, it's not knowable by humans. In the same way that, like, the way that the brain actually produces consciousness, from individual neuronal interactions, it is not understandable by humans. It is too complex of a system. It's an emergent property. You'll never be able to understand it. And science and reason, they gave us a lot of stuff. So I think a lot of people were like, oh shit, we can just apply science and reason to how to run a civilization. And then you get these like super, I guess for lack of a better word, autistic ideologies like Marxism, where it's like, oh, if we just do this one thing and only this one thing, then everything will get better. It's like, no, that doesn't seem to be the case. That's
Marxism is like the opposite of what I'm talking about. It's the attempt by men to literally catch the transcendental lightning in a bottle and distill it down into human shape.
Yeah, it's something that you can write down on a page. Be like, oh, just do this thing. It's not possible. It's a fool's errand.
Yeah, it's a systemic contradiction, like you just laid out with the combinatoric problem. It is literally impossible. Like, you cannot perfectly top-down plan an economy or a culture or a popular trend, and Disney can't make you like Star Wars.
No matter how many billions of dollars they pour into it. Shit, forgot what I was gonna say. Oh. The
Womp womp indeed.
the issue with all of, okay, so let me start by saying, this is why I think that I don't like to call myself an anarcho-capitalist or an anarcho-primitivist. I have those sentiments. Like, I definitely have a sentiment that, oh, if we just got rid of the government, everything would be better. If we just got rid of civilization itself, things would be better. But those are very simple ideas. And they necessarily, they cannot be the correct pathway forward. I think that maybe some elements of them might be good. Like maybe in general we can have a trend towards reducing government. In general, maybe we can have a trend towards reconnecting with nature. But the going like full on absolute, this is the logical, like I solved the math problem of civilization. It was a pretty simple math problem. Just, you know, I did some calculations and this is the correct answer. It doesn't exist. So when I say that I'm a libertarian, it's actually, it's kind of a it's not a super like dedicated belief towards any particular issue. It's just kind of a it's like a general like I think there's too much concentration of power. I don't necessarily have the solutions, but I feel like we have too much concentration of power. We should try to reduce it. I think that is better than saying, okay, the correct answer is that we just eliminate the government flat out. Because, I mean, here's the thing, right? If we were to eliminate the government just flat out, there are still structural hierarchies that exist. The economy would probably collapse, but then come back. A corporation would rise from the ashes. And whoever the largest corporation was after the corporate wars would be the new government. I don't think it's possible to get rid of the government. We would change the United States of America for like to use like the cyberpunk universe. It would just be, oh well, now Militech is the corporation that runs America. So like none of these are the answer. Obviously, Marxism isn't the answer. It's been tried like a couple times and it's never worked. So the answer is we don't know. We have no idea what the answer is, and I think that honestly, all of this political talk that we do, it all it does is it kind of it influences the system. It just pushes, it nudges it a bit. Like that's all it is. Like if there's a whole bunch of like ultra like anarcho-capitalists or something, and they all band together, they're like, yeah, down with the government. Well, they're never going to get rid of the government, but all of that talk that they're generating will nudge the system towards maybe becoming a bit smaller, and that's it. Because the system that we have is it's a complex emergent system. It's larger than we are. So and it's much like the stock market. It's impossible to really predict it or understand it. So yeah, that's where we find ourselves. Hey, I see that we have Phosphorus in here. What's going on, Phosphorus? Or should I call you?
Oh, I was just here to ask Bakir about a particular book he mentioned, done by a sword reviewing channel on YouTube about this sort of conqueror.
Shadow of the Conqueror by Shad M. Brooks.
There we go. Thank you.
Oh, was that it? You don't want to stay?
No, I was in the middle of a conversation with a friend of mine, which is why I didn't hop on Bakir. Sorry, but he was talking to me about a lot of things, and
all right. Well, have a good evening, Prefix Alaskan Phosphorus.
Well, there he goes. Well, that was certainly interesting. But anyway, well, this is the random bullshit show, so anything could happen, everybody. If people just pop in. But anyway, weirdly, I kind of wish he'd stayed longer because I have a funny notion, and this gets into like what we started this whole show with the Troxler effect and Loab and the Jungian archetypes. I think the type of thing that you're talking about that should be, well, it technically is impossible in like this mechanized, purely analytical way. But if you consider something like the existence of life, it's the same thing, and yet it exists. So that lets us know that there's no like discretizable, mechanized way of like figuring out how a cell is alive per se. It just kind of happens, though. And I think something similar probably much to our collective detriment as humans in general. This might be somewhat linked in with the Fermi paradox and the Great Filter event. Is that you just through a random confluence of things, like freaking finding Loab in this art AI, just like this random Jungian archetype floating around in the bowels of this AI art code somewhere. It could just be someone someday stumbles on this unknown, forbidden knowledge, just purely by happenstance of the machinations of the universe. Just like how life started on Earth 4 billion years ago. Just like why we have a certain type of sun instead of a different type of sun. It's like these seemingly, from our perspective, like random, unaccountable events. What if it just comes down to something like really trivial that some guy in his mom's basement, literally fucking around with a computer, just figures out, like, hey, there actually is a way to map like human desire and human nature down to this bottleable, discretizable way through this system, something like path semantics or some type of hyper-complex language of logic where you could actually catch the lightning in a bottle. Now you see how that would probably downward spiral into utter apocalypse relatively quickly.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be I would argue that is we can imagine that, but it's a little bit like time travel. It's like you can imagine it occurring, but it's not possible for that to actually be the case. Let me find this real quick.
Well, I mean, the existence of life shouldn't technically be possible just by the brute force numbers of it. And the fact that the Earth and the Moon are like exactly the right sizes where the Moon can perfectly eclipse the Sun, it's like all that just synchronizes. Like, yeah, that's like a lot of fucking coincidences that just seem to stack up seemingly from the chaos and the ether.
So this is rule 110 right here.
Rule 110, yay!
As I'm displaying on the screen. So this is an example of something that has both order and chaos, and actually you have I guess you have more of a if you look at this on the left side, it's more chaotic, and on the right side it tends towards order, and then somewhere in the between you end up with more of an emergent property. Now, rule 110 is it's a one-dimensional 8-bit cellular automata, so it's basically one of the simplest things that you could possibly create, and yet it generates an emergent property. So like, if I zoom in, you can see that there are actually individual particles. Like this particle right here, it actually repeats. There's 2 blue squares. There's 2 orange squares, 2 more orange squares, 2 blue squares, 4 orange squares, 2 blue squares, 4 orange squares. And if you zoom out, you can actually see that there are actually there's a number of particles, and they actually have particle interactions, and it's all very interesting. Now, this is basically the simplest example that exists of an emergent property, and there is no way, and I actually know this from a like a computational perspective. There is no way to predict exactly what is going to happen with these particles, except for just allowing them to collide and see what happens. Like, if I give you the initial starting position up here, just below the orange bit, the initial starting position of this, there is no way that you would know that, oh, it eventually ends with like this particular set of particles, without actually doing the calculation. So, like, computationally, I know that human beings and the process of nature and all the emergent properties that exist, I mean, we sit on basically like a mountain of emergent properties that lead to other emergent properties. I know, computationally speaking, that there is no way to actually figure it out. It cannot be just mathematically determined with an equation. Like, not possible. So.
I shall respond to that momentarily, but for right now we will have to pause. Yeah, more of what I'm talking about is like it has less to do with currently existing emergent properties and more like a type of like the secret sauce formula that kickstarts emergent like combinatoric explosions to that degree with the same level of robustness that life itself would have.
You know what that kind of sounds like?
The revolutionary phenotype.
I mean, potentially everything is potentially a revolutionary phenotype, but that sounds like I don't know if you ever got a chance to read the Isaac Asimov Foundation series, but like that sounds like a second Foundation.
Yeah, that I've started reading that a long time ago, but never did really get into it. Because it's one like you told me about this about sci-fi fiction before. It's like, god damn it, it's especially fucking Asimov. Everything is like really fucking dry. It literally starts out reading like the manual for a VCR. That's how fucking dry it is.
Yeah, there's especially Isaac Asimov. He's not really great at characters or like it it's a little bit like Aspergery. It's only the concepts and like the characters don't really matter, their emotions don't matter, none of that matters. Yeah.
And I'm like kind of the creative polar opposite of that, where I mean I can get to a concept, but it's through this roundabout sort of circumlocutory way that involves like a lot of different character interactions and development over time. And some of the stuff is like highly symbolic and allegorical, so very few things in the shit that I write can be taken literally and at face value, which for an extremely analytical and possibly spurgy person, that's like a living nightmare, so I can understand the difference between those two lines of thought. Especially when it gets into like, oh, the contradictions. Hey, you said something in chapter 1, but then in chapter 3, this character contradicts that initial motivation for seemingly no reason. Why the hell would they do that? And you've seen it on YouTube enough times to see that type of breakdown of like narrative goes to shit immediately type of thing.
I mean,
There's like hours of internet content for that.
that's right, and I agree. I personally speaking find that to be infuriating.
Then you realize that in a symbolic sense, the contradiction isn't so much a contradiction as it's sort of like how you didn't like that Ghost Dog movie and like certain anime styles where it's like there's not really so much character development as kind of like you get presented with these hyper distilled, almost stereotypical representations of characters and they just kind of stay the same.
Yeah, I hate that. That's why I don't like the serialized TV shows like
The Simpsons.
like The Simpsons, right? No matter what, they have to be reset to be the exact same people by the end of the episode so that the next episode can happen. Every single story is completely self-contained. That's why I'm not a bit like a lot of the shows from the early aughts and like the 90s and before that also were like that because it's like, okay, we got to put an episode up, we got to broadcast an episode every week. Not everyone is going to have seen the previous week's episode, maybe they were busy or something, so it makes more sense to have a story self-contained into one episode, like House, like House, for instance, right? Like, it's a great example. Every episode is a completely self-contained story, and where there is character development, it's usually like in the first and last episodes of that season, and not much changes because that was necessary. But I much prefer the actual like when a show is basically like a 12-hour movie, like Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is excellent. You have to have had seen the previous episode, or else nothing will make sense. I want like a complete long ass story. That's my favorite. Like Breaking Bad. That's my favorite type of TV.
And also, like, there's another thing like that that's existed for much longer. It's called soap operas, where it's like a reliable audience that's always going to see this because it's primarily marketed towards women. And at least up to a certain point in the Western world, most women were at home. So they would be at home watching the soap operas reliably, whereas like when the men get home in prime time, they're going to be concerned with so many like work and job things like, I don't know how to keep up with all these divergent storylines. I just want a like repeatable, reliable thing, like my monotonous fucking wage slave mechanized organ bag existence at my job is. I want that similar comfort.
Okay, so the
Weird enough.
I just looked this up because I forgot the number. I went through the calculation at one point, but Days of Our Lives I think is the most popular American soap opera. I think it might be the
Yep.
it might be the longest running as well. Do you want to guess how many episodes there are to Game of Our Lives? Not Game of Our Lives, Days of Our Lives.
Probably hundreds.
Hundreds. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe thousands at this point.
14,430 episodes so far.
Oh goddamn! That's and just imagine like if you missed the first episode, you have no idea what's happening. Good luck binge watching that.
Okay, so I'm gonna do the calculation real quick, right? So I'm gonna assume that each episode is like an hour long, so 60 minutes. So that's 865,000 minutes, and I'll divide by 60. So that's I'm dumb. So you have 14,430 hours. Divide by 24. So that's 600 days, and then divide by 365. So you have 1.65 years of content. Like if you did nothing, like you didn't sleep, you didn't eat, you didn't take any breaks, it would take you 1.65 years to get through the entirety of Days of Our Lives. Jesus. That's a lot of episodes.
Sounds about right to me. Yeah.
Let's assume that you let's say that you went to work 8 hours a day. You immediately teleported home, and watched Days of Our Lives for 8 hours, and then you got 8 hours of sleep, right? So like 8 hours a day, you spend nothing but watching Days of Our Lives. 8 hours a day, just that's the only thing that you do. 8 hours a day, dedicated. Weekends, holidays, every day you watch you watch Days of Our Lives every day, 8 hours a day. It would take you 13 years to get through it. My God.
Yeah, that's pretty grueling.
Well, with that exciting end note about soap operas, I guess that's as good as a place as any to leave this. So, Breaker, any closing remarks?
Don't forget that Loab is inevitable. She is everywhere. She is super permeated into the very fabric of the cosmos itself, and you will not escape her wrath.
All right, and with that, peace out, everyone.